Hello and welcome to Ditching Hourly. I'm Jonathan Stark. Today I am joined by return offender, repeat offender, Digby Leigh. Digby, welcome back.
Thanks, Jonathan. Really excited to be here again.
I am, just to give the folks some context, I just want to set this talk up a little bit and then I can have you sort of dive into you and your background and what you've been doing the last year. But, I'm on a mission to rid the world of hourly billing. That's what this podcast is about, Ditching Hourly. And in my experience, the legal space is the sort of that'll be the last bastion of hourly billing in the professions. It seems like it was my understanding is it was the first one. It was where hourly billing came from in the professions, and it could be the last one to leave it. So whenever I hear someone doing something innovative around pricing in the legal profession, I get super excited because it makes me feel like progress is being made. So the last time I had you on, last time Digby came on, we talked about your frank fees approach. And this time around, you've taken that even farther, and you can tell me how directly related they are, if at all, and are creating a SaaS for lawyers to price their work instead of billing by the hour. And maybe I've got that wrong, and you can correct me, but that's just for the listener. That's what the conversation's about today. So, Digby, could you just give folks a little bit of background on who you are and what you do, and then we can talk about alt fee.
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. I am a lawyer. I have been practicing law for 40 years come this May, and I have done it in a large firm with 100 lawyers. I've done it in a partnership, and I've now got my own firm with about 30 people. And so I've seen a lot over the years, and quite a while ago, I decided that the hourly model of billing was broken for the legal industry on a lot of fronts. I believe it is not healthy for the clients and price certainty, and that's an easy one to understand, and there's demand there. But as importantly, or perhaps even more importantly, I think it's really not great for the lawyers and the paralegals and the other staff in the industry, is because you can only be rewarded by how many hours you put in, and you become more of a financial contributor by putting in more hours. And I just felt like a better system was where you're encouraged to create great systems, allocate resources properly, project manage. And so I have been on my own personal mission to rid our firm of billing by the hour, and now to make it available for the legal industry generally worldwide.
It's very exciting. Anything I could do to help that catch on, I'm going to do it. So, if folks want to hear more about how Digby and Friends did their pricing, I suppose you still do your pricing with the frank fee approach.
Yeah, Jonathan, why don't I just kind of create the connection between frank fee and alt fee, which is the SaaS product, and how they fit together.
Perfect. Yes, please.
So, yeah, frank fee is a branded name that we created to be really clear to ourselves and our client that when we went away from hourly billing, we were really going away, as we talked about a year ago, jumping into the deep end instead of dipping our toe in the shallow end. And we created a name so that it was clear that we were making this fundamental shift. But what we did was all we knew how to do, which was we started by creating pricing guidelines and looking at all the different types of projects that we did, and then creating factors around them and quantifying them when we could, so that we had this more cost-based tool to price in advance with agreed upon pricing up front. So that turned into the launch of frank fee in our firm of 30 people back in September of 2020, which is about a year and a half ago. And so when we got together a year ago in February, we'd been working under frank fee for about 5 months. Now, as soon as we launched frank fee, knew it was right for the legal industry and knew that technology would help. So my two sons, Scott and Digby, and I, along with developers, have worked on creating a SaaS product to provide technology to assist. And that is branded under AltFee, and you can find out about it. I get my plug right now, altfeeco.com, ALTFEE co.com. And our webpage is up. It's really descriptive. It's been in a good state for probably about the last month or two. And we launched our product for the world on February 8th. So just not even a week ago. So it's really exciting to actually see the baby move along to birth,
Right.
if you will. But we've had it in our firm at Digby Leigh and Co. now since October. So we've been working under alt fee, producing frank fee for our clients, if you will, but using technology now for the last 4 or 5 months. So we had a good chance to see how the SaaS product's going to work.
Hmm. Fascinating. Oh, okay. So the website looks beautiful. I was looking at it before we spoke, and it makes mention of uh, a term comes up repeatedly called alternative fee arrangements, I think.
Yep.
And that sounds like something that doesn't sound like something that you made up. Is that a trend that's happening?
Oh my goodness, yeah, it's well known in the legal industry, I guess, well known, at least well known to us. And so we've taken what we're doing and maybe used some of our terminology, but adopted what we think will be understood in the legal industry. So alternative fee arrangements are any sort of arrangement which is other than billing by the hour. And
Mhm.
they're also known as AFAs. And so we talk a lot about that on our website because we think that that terminology will resonate with lawyers in the legal industry.
Right. Okay. And so that's got to be a number of different things. If it's like if it's defined to be not hourly, I imagine there are a number of different ways that people, lawyers in this case, would come up with fixed fees of one kind or another. Is that the case?
100%. And last time we chatted, Jonathan, we talked a lot about, I called it agreed upon pricing upfront, like, agreeing to the price in some sort of way before you start. And I still think about it, in those terms. So typical examples of alternative fee arrangements would be a lump sum amount for a scope of work that you're going to do. And that would be the most common. So, you could take incorporating a company, there'd be a price, there'd be certain scope of work within that, and you would agree to the price in advance. So lump sum. You also could have more of a subscription based pricing, a periodic period of time where you pay a certain amount per month or a certain amount per quarter, and you get a range of services for that. And another example would be a success fee or a contingency fee, where part of your compensation is tied to a result at the end of the day. So those would be fairly frequent types of AFAs.
Okay. And of those, how do you have a sense of how common something like lump sum, for example? So like a lump sum for incorporating a business or a divorce, or I don't know, you could tell me, but a lump sum for something that is likely to have a relatively fixed scope. Is that how well does that how well does that model fit like the legal profession? So just imagine that I have not had a lot of experience with lawyers other than, trial courtroom dramas on TV, okay, which seem like, you always see like Goliath or whatever, and the trial goes on forever, and you don't know if you're going to win or lose, and you don't know how long it's going to take or how much money you're going to have to spend. That seems like a terrible fit for a lump sum payment. But I imagine that there are lots and lots and lots of things that aren't like that dramatic trial type of scenario, like incorporation, or maybe writing an, I don't know, an SOW or boilerplate, or how much can lawyers bring this into their businesses? Or let me put it a different way. Is there a type of legal specialization that lends itself better to something like lump sum?
Well, anything that's commodity like, if you will, in other words, it's very predictable what exactly you're going to have to do. An incorporation would be typical real estate, regular residential real estate transactions would fit into that. Um, eh, when we started, we probably did fixed fee for 60% of our revenue before we even started, just because it would be very consistent what we're going to do. We would price it the same all the time, no matter how long. So we did a lot of work that way, and maybe even 90% of our bills went out that way before we converted over. So I think there's lots in the legal industry that fits into that, and there's lots that's being done and already with fixed fees. The challenging, you've alluded to litigation as being a challenging area to do fixed fee up front. Complex solicitors work like an M&A transaction, reacting in the sale of a business or the purchase. Right. That can feel difficult because it's unpredictable. So there's a lot of techniques that you can bring into play to help do those with agreed upon pricing up front. One of my ones that I like, I really feel it takes a long time to understand your client, for them to understand you and how you're going to work together. And so often we unbundle the services and we do a strategic planning session to start with, where we create the plan and we pick usually a fairly modest price for that first part, because it's all part of the learning process. And out of that, we would come up with a plan and for a fixed fee. And then, having gone through that, we would go again and look at pricing the remainder of the project. So, as an example, you've got someone that comes into you, they say, I'm interested in selling my business. You would go, okay, let's spend some time together. Let's understand where you're at, what you're interested in, what you're worried about, and what success would look like. And we can create that plan for you. And this is how the scope will work. Maybe, this meeting and that meeting. And then once having done that, we're in a position where we can, with a lot more certainty, see what the rest of the project's going to look like and probably price the project to the end.
Right. Yeah. Classic. Yeah. It's like a road mapping before a big software build. So, for, my background's in software, so that's the exact same thing, basically.
Exactly. And trust is built up over a period of time. So, part of that is the trust building that you go through and getting to know each other. And then a lot of the unpredictability is really taken out of it. And then just kind of to follow down the path. So your first step might be to negotiate an LOI with a prospective purchaser. And so in an M&A transaction. So with that, you might scope it by limiting the terms of the agreement, the LOI. In other words, we'll send the draft to you. You'll have a look at it. We'll revise. You have one more look. It's finalized. We then send it to the other side, and then it can go back and forth a couple times. And I tell my clients, I really am only doing that to protect myself against the crazies, because you really don't know sometimes. And I need some limit. I need some ability to call out that the scope has changed. But I try not to rely on that. I try and build in enough in the pricing that I can, not have to nickel and dime, so to speak.
Do you find that in a scenario where you're not, with meters not running, you're not billing by the hour, how does that affect the relationship with the client, if at all? And do they have a tendency to, for lack of a better description, get really chatty since they know they're not paying for it?
Unbelievably not. I think it's kind of like the more rules you make, which rules are like billing by, every hour, every minute counts. If you take that away, then people have good common sense and they don't want to waste their time either. So I literally can't think of an example where I've had a client that has been too chatty. The reason it's so good is actually you now have communication, and you don't have clients that are reluctant to phone you or email you and tell you what's on their mind. You just do a way better job. So I think it's just such a better relationship, client lawyer.
I'm glad to hear that. That's my experience as well. But I know it's a fear out there. It's like, well, if they're not paying for every minute, they're just gonna hang out with me on the phone. It's like, I don't think your clients really, I don't think that they're excited to like talk to their lawyer or software developer or designer like for an hour for no reason. They've got a life to lead too.
Like, they'll be like always, they want to catch up. They want to know how you're doing. And I want to know and then we'll go, okay, these are the things we've got to do today. And off we go. communication is just so much better. And there's just examples of where people are letting you know, and they're not carrying and they're picking up the phone when something important's happening. So
Right.
I think you've touched on something which is really important to be successful in moving away from billing by the hour, and that's attitude. You have to beat back the attitude of I need to be paid for every minute I spend.
Mm.
And you look at it on a grander basis on, like as an example, by billing realization rate. And if you can beat that back, and you can truly go, oh, that file went that way. Unless, I spent more time than I might have thought, or I spent a lot of time, but that's okay. Because there may be examples where the opposite happens. So maybe I just let you know what's happened on a business level since we converted over to frank fee. So one of our metrics, and we're unlike some firms, we actually that have gone away from hourly billing, we still keep track of our time just like we did before. Probably the detail of our description is not as precise as it used to be, but what that lends itself to is for management purposes, we can see the inputs on the work that we're doing. So, and we still reflect that in what we refer to as time cost. So before we started, Jonathan, back in 2020, made the decision March of 2020. If you look at all of 2020, even the first few months of launch of frank fee, our billing realization rate was high 80s. So 88, 89. And very, over a good sample size. So we know that says something. And if you look at Clio's legal trend reports, the national average in the US is 83% for 2020 and 84% for 2021. So we were strong already. But by the time we got to when we were talking in early 2021, our billing realization rates had started to inch up. And when we look at the first 6 months of 2021, our billing realization rate, which is, time cost to actual billing amount for fees, was up to 92%. And then when we looked at the last 6 months of 2021, we're at 100%. And now we're at the start of 2022. January was 112%. So we've created a lot of efficiencies. We've created a lot of, I think it's probably helped us on pricing. We do use a combination of looking at the market, considering our costs, our inputs, and what we're going to have to do to do a project, but we also look at value and what we're delivering at the other end. And so that combination has really led us to get more out of the time we put in terms of the revenue side.
So I don't want to get too into the weeds on this, but can you go a little bit deeper into what that calculation is? I mean, it's trending in a good direction, but I don't understand exactly what you're calculating there. It sounds like increased profits, basically, but
it's efficiency, I think, is the expression I would use.
Okay.
So if you believe that the hourly rate times the amount of time is somehow reflects how much input you put into a file. It's generally the old system of billing by the hour is basically you get paid on a cost plus basis. You look at, a lawyer's salary, you look at the attributable overhead, and then, the allocated overhead, and then you look at a profit margin. And if you do all that, you create hourly rates around that, but based on recorded targets. So I guess I'm in the weeds, sorry. It's hard not to get into the weeds, but
that's what I wanted.
Yeah, but if you look at the end result on a file, when you finish, you look at all the people that worked on it, you multiply the hours they spent by the hourly rate, and you get something called time cost. You then bill that file, and you get whatever fee you generate out of that. So you can imagine if you had, new lawyers and paralegals working on an incorporation, you decide you're going to bill $1,000. And that we had great systems, you could do that with $500 worth of time cost, to use an example.
Right. Yeah.
But yet still bill it at market rate. And so that billing realization rate looks at all the files. And we, and very interestingly, to me at least, we We can see individuals, we can see, and there's a huge range of billing realization rates for individuals. And we also can see project types. So we're able to identify areas that were constant challenges to be efficient with our time.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're able to maybe de-emphasize them and emphasize other areas. So it really helped us. We also went through looking at the areas of practice the projects we took on, and it helped us make better decisions around that too.
Got it. Okay. And now, is that a big piece of the software so that you can sort of, as someone who runs a law firm with 30 people, you can kind of slice and dice and identify those things from, reports or dashboards in the software so that you can see, like you said, you can call out like, geez, every time we have, this kind of a litigation file, it goes horribly, like in terms of profitability, or, geez, we're really crushing it on these, I don't know, contract negotiations, or we're crushing it on these incorporations. We should get more of those. So that it gives you information that you can use to make decisions about the direction you want to take your firm.
Yeah. So no is the answer right now. We focused on, just like we did at the firm when we rolled out Frank Fee, we focused on the pricing guidelines. So what the tool does is help you build a customized pricing guideline for your project areas, just like we got started.
Mm-hmm.
We still take the data at the end, and we manipulate it ourselves to get those billing realization rates. Mm-hmm. But to create a SaaS product for that, we'd have to be able to dovetail it into all the different accounting systems that there are, and there's many. And so we've zeroed in on something simple that's usable, that there's value. So, but it's all around factors and pricing guidelines and knowledge sharing. So we also built in the learning aspect of it, so there's lots of places for insight, for update requests in terms of the project guidelines, and it works as a collaborative tool within a firm or within even a smaller group within a firm.
Yeah, I noticed that on the website. So who prices? Like, who's allowed to price? Is it a group thing? Like maybe the team that's going to work on a particular file gets to price it, or is there a person who is responsible for pricing everything, and then people who are working on the project are responsible to, I don't know, keep that issue updated, or what's the thinking?
Yeah, complete business call on that. It's however you delegate authority within your firm. There'll be some firms that have a pricing officer and a guideline in which everything must go to a pricing officer. In our firm, we don't have that type of policy. We allow people to use their good judgment, discretion, and they're pretty quick to reach out when they think that there's a fairly significant pricing to be done, and there's some complexity to it. So I tend to be quite a resource on those things.
Interesting. Cool. So what's the hope? Is the hope that, I mean, we're sort of on the same mission. Like, obviously you're creating a SaaS product. It was clearly a non-trivial investment. You want to make money from it, of course. But this is the first tool I've seen built by lawyers for lawyers to do pricing, or, alternative fee arrangement pricing. I'm familiar with other law firms that have created a SaaS product to maybe automate something that they do, like mock trials, or sort of like automating parts of their job, their activities, the things that they do for their clients. But this is the first time I've heard of a piece of pricing software. In fact, come to think of it, I can't think of much pricing software for really any different industries.
Yeah, it's interesting, John. I think we are on the same mission. And, if you don't have like purpose and you don't know what's important to you, then no matter what the economic mission is, it doesn't really matter. So, first and foremost, I see a lot of lawyers leaving the legal industry at a young age. I see the industry is broken. And so I feel so strongly that this is a positive for the legal industry. And I really feel that if we're both sitting around here in 5 years talking, we'll have seen a dramatic shift in the legal industry. I think we're already, seeing a lot. I mean, our traction has been crazy good. Like I post an article every month on my LinkedIn account, and I'm coming up to my 8th. I beg people to disagree with me, and nobody will disagree. I mean, maybe they don't want to, but I want to hear why not. The most I ever get is that, oh, I just don't think the industry is ever going to change,
Right.
or I don't want to go, I don't want to bother. And I'm like, it's not that hard. Like, and I got data to prove that it can actually be good for your business. So, it's, the hope is, our interest is literally worldwide. UK, Australia, New Zealand, US, Canada, we're still English speaking at this stage, but there's a world. And if you go down to Australia, I think they tend to be fairly progressive in Australia. And so you'll find that there's way more of an appetite for alternative fee arrangements down there than I think you'd find in North America. So the bubble is here. I think we may have just right place, right time. We'll see. But I think that there's a lot of interest and energy. As you said, maybe the legal industry is the last bastion. I really got a great sense just from all the reach out, all the feedback. I think we got a lot of people rooting for the direction we're going. And we've tested it enough to know, like, we've been in an alt fee now for about 5 months, 6 months or something. And it's really crazy. Like, when I look at our firm, and we're obviously, we got a pretty good champion in me in the firm,
right.
But I just watch, and we got everybody using it and they're all enjoying it. There's a positive like to it, and there's a collaborative effect. And it is really actually cool to see it taking hold as much as it is, the whole concept.
Yeah. I mean, please, if that domino fell, that would make my life a lot easier for sure. So let's talk about objections for a second, though. You said you haven't gotten much pushback. I can imagine some, and I kind of want to get your take on it. If you just think that no, those are myths, or at least you haven't heard them. But I've heard from some people, and maybe this is overseas, not the U.S., but that there are some, I don't know if they're regulatory or maybe the bar association or something, that there's some requirement of around hourly disclosures or something. I've been told that there are places where you have to use hourly based on either the trade association or local regulations. Have you ever heard of anything like that in the law space?
Yeah, I don't think you have to. I think what you've probably heard about is about something called like justifying your fee at the end of the day. And there's a lot of factors they look at, including the time expended by you, which is one of the reasons one of the other reasons, other than management purposes, that we also track time. Okay. So at the end of the day, I would say that if you have an agreed upon price, and you have agreed upon scope of work, that in probably almost any jurisdiction, no matter what time you spend, that's going to be a very important factor in deciding whether it's a fair fee or not. But there's regulatory oversight of pricing in the legal industry. And so I think that's probably what you've read or heard about.
Yeah, I'm probably conflating the time tracking requirement with the billing. That's probably what it was. Another common objection, or something I've heard about, in large firms where partners are like hoarding hours. I don't exactly understand this, but I know that I have been told by people in this space that there are political dynamics inside of the firm where some people would be big beneficiaries of, it seems like they would be beneficiaries of hourly, in the sense that, like, it's a game they have figured out and it benefits them, even if it causes trauma for other people in the firm and also for the clients. Am I making that up, or is that just someone who's not your client or client of the software?
You've hit the nail over the head, or on the head, because it's what people are used to, and they're successful financially in that model. So why take a risk and see it get changed? And so you're right. When you have a lot of people inputting on a big decision like that in a large firm, it's difficult to change the status quo. So I don't believe that overall it's not better for the firm if you do change, but I think you have those politics. The interesting thing about our SaaS product, the alt fee, is that we've already seen it in a mid-sized firm where one person in that firm with his small team has gone onto our onto alt fee because he had the ability to do it because it doesn't take a firm-wide decision to change over. It's just a web-based, and so he's using it as a tool for his pricing in his little micro environment. So I think that people that want to use it, even in the large firms, and see an advantage and better pricing, will adopt the alt fee model eventually.
Oh, cool. So you almost have that's great. It could sort of be brought in Trojan horse, grassroots, bottom up, kind of like, geez, your team is, I don't know, your profitability is really high or your revenue is really high, but you don't seem to be working around the clock. What gives?
Yeah, 100%. And so I think there's lots of people, even in large firms, that see the benefit of moving away from hourly billing. I mean, you got to, if you're working 7 days a week, 16 hours a day, and the only way that you can contribute more and get paid more is if you work an additional hour a day. It's got to make sense to at least stop and think about, can I get more efficient? And so once you break that barrier down and you start to incentivize around building systems, every time we do a new project now, for sure with me and with others as well, the words out of my mouth are, can we build the system? We've got to build the system. Like I know we're getting the project done. I know that's what's eating at us right now, but we got to build the system, and we build the system coming right out of it. And I think if we're still in an hourly model, it just that goes down the list in terms of projects, precedent building.
Well, that's a great direction to go next. So some of the toughest pushback I get is from people who run firms, let's say 30 people like yours. What did you find when way back when you introduced the concept of not billing by the hour? What did you find from a cultural standpoint? What were the difficulties? How did you have to change incentives? Because if the incentive normally in a firm would be whoever puts in the most hours wins, billable hours wins, then and that incentive goes away, then what's the new incentive? Like, why not just, I don't know, take forever? Like, what's the thing that keeps your employees productive, if not this requirement to get more billable hours in?
Yeah. So you asked me exactly the same question last time, and I said it was a work in progress. And I'm going to say a little bit the same, although we're working on something right now, which I think will tie back in. The one thing we have done is we have de-emphasized recorded time. So we used to look at recorded time and billings attributable to individuals and set goals around that. We've now eliminated setting any goals around recorded time. It's all around billing and realization rates, and that's all they hear about. So we've changed the conversation a bit, but what we haven't done is directly tied their compensation to it, but their targets are tied to it, which in some ways does directly tie into compensation.
Okay. So some people in the software space, the incentive model is, you're assigned a certain amount of stuff to do, or not stuff to do. You're essentially assigned a goal, for a client, and and when you're done and it's great, you're done. So the incentive model is like, oh, you only want to work 3 hours a week? 3 days a week, or 3 hours a week, I guess. You only want to work 3 days a week, then, just build some systems to deliver this thing that you're supposed to deliver very quickly at a high level of quality, and you're off for the rest of the week. I don't know if that would work, but I see that model in the software space. It's like when the client's happy, you're done. So figure out how to make the client happy, and if that was your job for this month and you did it in 2 weeks, you get 2 weeks off.
Yeah. So I don't think we quite have that culture, but we're not far off it, because we don't talk about how many hours you work. We talk about your effectiveness and so people are finding ways to get the job done, if you will, within a normal day as opposed to an extended day.
Yeah.
So in our industry, that's like having time off, I suppose.
Yes. Right. Yeah.
So,
yeah. That's the exact same thing. Yeah.
I did a calculation, and it's interesting, but if I looked at our old billing realization rate of 88, 89%, I looked at if it was 112, and we showed that more than beyond January, What that means is that you get 15 minutes every hour to yourself that you didn't get before.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty staggering when you look at it that way. So the one thing we have done is we've, as I said, we now build around, not around recorded time, around billing. So, and we've created a system which a lot of people in our firm are on, which we called earned amount, and they get that by hitting their billing targets, not the recorded time targets.
I see.
And that's the last portion of what their salary is, which allows them to be paid pretty well because it's expensive to live in Vancouver, like a lot of places now.
Cool. So billing targets instead. So can you describe that? Just make sure everybody understands when you say billing target. This is amount of money that employee Alice is
Yeah.
her goal is to bring in this much money. Is that what you mean by billing target?
Yeah, and so it's not cash collected quite, but it's bills that go out of the firm.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess the easiest thing is let's look at that incorporation file.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say we had a paralegal that recorded 2 hours at $100 an hour, and that was $200. And we had a lawyer that was at $250 an hour, and they recorded 1 hour. And you added all that up, then you'd find the time cost. One on the lawyer was $250, and on the paralegal was $100. And then you prorate the overall fee based on that, and you get fees attributed to you. And so every bill that goes out, your billings are your percentage, if you will, of the overall bill.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
I mean, we need a chalkboard or something to
No, I get the idea. I get the idea.
Yeah.
But so it raises from a management standpoint, if let's say, people have monthly goals, or well, you tell me, how do you set the goals? Is it a per project or per client engagement, or is it just monthly in general?
Monthly.
Monthly, okay.
Yeah,
So,
annualized, broken down into months.
all right, so then that must create when the work is handed out, whoever's handing out the work could, not that you would, but like you could hand out work in a way that was perceived as unfair to somebody who like, I can't hit my goals with this stuff. They can promise that they'll work in a certain number of hours. That's under their control. But how does that work? How does that dynamic work?
That's interesting. I guess it's, the reason I've never thought of that or really thought much about it is we have so much work that people are trying to keep work from coming to them as opposed to get more work. So nobody's there sitting there complaining that they're not getting enough work. And work always finds, this is an absolute fact, work will find whoever's helpful. It will always find its way there. So if you're helpful, your job, if you're a young lawyer, young paralegal, you're getting started, and you don't have your own book of work, your job is to be helpful to the people within the business, and you will get work for sure, guaranteed.
Man, that's great advice. Okay, yeah, I love that.
Stuff done.
I love that. Very actionable, and it's outcome oriented. It's not input oriented. So
100%.
the helpfulness thing, maybe it took you 5 seconds, maybe it took you 5 days, but if you become well known as the person who gets the job done, helps, then you're right. You're just going to keep getting picked. It's like, put me in, coach. Okay. You got it. You keep hitting home runs. You keep getting put in.
Right. And so don't come to me and complain that you're not getting enough work, because it ultimately is really up to you. And work will find you. It will find you from the external clients, and it will find you internally if you're, I like to use the expression helpful, because that's really saying the amount that you contribute is less than the costs around you. So if you have to be babysat by somebody else and you really don't add much value, then you're, in getting things done, then you're not as helpful.
Yeah, it's a perfect word. I love it. Great. And it does address the unequal distribution of work. It's kind of like if you're buried and you've got plenty of work to go around, and it's automatically going to find its way to the right. I guess that's just a cultural or a management thing it's not super directly related. It's really not related to pricing. I can't even think of any way that's related to pricing. That's just like good project management or good management in general. It's like distributing the work to the right people. People who
work sounds so foreign to me, because I just want to get it off my desk. I mean, I've really been like that. Even when I was at the large firm and I was fairly young, I was getting work in and delegating it up to the senior partners because I said, well, this is something you should do. This has got a lot of money involved. Why don't you handle this? So I've been getting work off my desk now for pretty much all the 4 years, and I can't get it off my desk fast enough. So as people point out to me, sometimes I don't understand everybody, and that they may see the world slightly differently than me, and that's a fair comment. But my perspective is that work will find you if you're helpful, and clients will find you if you're helpful, and
if the air quotes boss is a good delegator, it might not even be the boss, but someone is, as long as you have good delegation, then the tasks are going to land on the right desks, on the desks of the people who will be most effective at that thing, all things considered. If you're not, once you get off it is interesting if you think about it though, because when you get off of that hourly treadmill, it becomes much more dynamic and complicated, but nuanced. Maybe complicated is the wrong word. It becomes much more nuanced and way more client focused and way more employee focused. It just feels
100%.
Yeah, right.
Yes. Like, I want to say it even stronger than you said it, because it is so good in our firm. We asked a lot of the people in our firm after about a year of being on Frank Fee, what do you like most about it? And number one was no more conversations with the clients after the file is completed about how we spent our time and what we're billing. Like none. Like we sent out a bill. It's one line. It says something like, we did what you asked us to do, and this is what you owe us because that's what you said you'd pay. That's all we say. And it is awful, I think, to have to justify why I go and talk to some other person about somebody's problem because I want their input, because I think they're smart and I think they may have ideas. And I don't want to have to justify that ever. I want to be able to take the best route I can possibly imagine to get the best result for my client. So
it gives you so much latitude.
100% to live your life. And you can, I was just thinking about like one of the learnings that I've had in moving away to agreed upon pricing up front is how much pricing is a skill set. Like it's, and I'm going to give you the plug I gave you last time, and because I use it so often. And you're asking the why question, like you ask the client, why do you need this project done? Then you ask, why do you need it done now? Yeah. And then lastly, and really powerful in my case, as I say, why do you want us to do it? And usually that creates the value proposition for the client. And you wouldn't and they start to say all the words themselves as to why it's important and why they want it done now and why they want you to do it. Usually the you is because so-and-so said, you're the best. Like, I really want you to do it. And so they've already created the value proposition for themselves. And, but pricing is such a skill set, using options in pricing, and being strategic in how you do that. And is such like a tool that you're really, I don't know who teaches you that in the practice of law, but if you give clients options, then what they're going to most often do is compare your options to each other, right, as opposed to your option to the world. Mm-hmm. And so like all of a sudden you've got this conversation, this collaboration. You can go like, do you like to pay a small amount each month, but a higher success fee? Or do you want a lower success fee, but you'll pay because you've got lots of cash? And, we get a little bit of a win here if things go well, but you're by and large going to have to pay as you go along. And each client would be different. But if you could start that conversation of what fits them and give them different choices, it's collaborative, it's a conversation. And so I think it's pricing is a real skill set. And I think I found that, we didn't, if in hindsight, could have spent more time on it in the firm, trying to do role playing and so that people would get more and more comfortable. Mm-hmm. But that's the nice thing about the alt fee is that, and that's what we're finding is most of our pricing is being done by paralegals and junior lawyers with my touch at the end if it's a significant project. Mm. But they have the tool now to have confidence to set a price and to have all those discussions on their own where I don't even have to be a part of it. And the product gives you the confidence that you're considering the right things, both from a value perspective and from an input cost perspective.
Right. Yeah, you haven't missed something big. Yeah. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. That's great. So, geez, I should probably let you go, but is there anything you could leave folks with, maybe especially for folks that do have, 20, 30, 40, 50 employees that are terrified of making any kind of change, but at the same time, they know they have to do something because every year they're just working more and more and they're losing their weekends and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Do it for yourself. Do it for your own health. Like, and what's the harm in trying once and seeing how it goes, and then maybe trying a second time. I mean, that's really what we did. I mean, we worked hard to create a system to start, but we really very much just tried it once, then did it again, and just kept. One of the things that we've done that we haven't talked about today is we built an outlier program to go with our pricing guidelines when we launched Frank Fee. And the outlier program was that data analytics backend, so that we look at all the files where we have strong billing realization results and those that we have weak. And then everybody that works on it debriefs in a drop down box type of way, in which you very quickly are asked, like, how did this happen? Do you need to build a new system? Is our guideline off? Do we, all those types of questions.
Yeah.
And that's really been, that's been a real positive as well. And people, just try something different and give it a shot. And what bad can really happen when you step back and think about it? Definitely, I can't think of an instance where we've lost any work as a result of it. So we're getting the work, we're getting more efficient, and we're not losing it. And clients love it. They actually now phone and say, Digby, can I get the Frank fee on this? Like I go, sure.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, Jonathan, I really applaud you for your mission in life. I think it's for the people working in the industry, in any industry, it's just so positive. And of course, we share that mission in life.
Great. Yeah, I'm so happy to see something so tangible, as a tool that people can use in this space, particularly in the legal space, to start getting off the billable hour. It's really encouraging, and I wish you the best of luck.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jonathan.
All right, folks, that's it for this week. I'm Jonathan Stark, and you've been listening to Ditching Hourly. Bye.